So for this tutorial you would be needing your magical Cricut machine, exterior fabric, lining fabric, fusible medium weight, woven or non-woven interfacing, magnetic snaps. I don't have one, so I'm just gonna use Velcro. Velcro is this thing. It opens up like this and it's very noisy. And you would need 4" of zipper. So this is the one that I'll be using. So you'd also be needing this D-ring, which is like a 1/2 inch, which will allow you to attach your wallet to your keychain or your purse or wherever you want. So go ahead and gather your supplies and make sure you cut out the fabric based on the instructions given in the pattern. So I've already cut out my lining and my exterior fabric so that I don't waste a lot of them. So I've cut them out in like special sizes and shapes, as you can see over here, because I just hate wasting fabric, and this is so damn pretty. I do not want to waste a single strand, literally. And I have already cut out my interfacing using the Cricut maker. And you'd also be needing the Cricut fabric pen. Without this you cannot work on this project, so make sure you have this. To load the pattern, first go to design.cricut.com and select New Project. Again, go to Projects from the left-hand side. From the drop-down menu, just select Sewing. And look for the wallet over here, or you can just type in the search box wallet. And here you go. This is the pattern. So just click on the pattern and then just click make it. So this is a Cricut Access pattern. If you have the Cricut Access membership, you get this for free. Connect your Cricut to your PC using Bluetooth or USB and come over here and just click on continue. So first we're gonna set the material. So we're using medium fabric like cotton, but if you're using heavyweight fabric like denim or upholstery, then you can go for heavy fabrics. I'm using quilting cotton, so I'm gonna use medium fabric. Pressure should be set to default. Now go ahead and load your pen and rotary blade if you don't already have one loaded inside. Next, based on the instructions, we need to place mat 1. On mat 1, we're going to place interfacing on the mat with the 12" side along the length of the mat. Once you have loaded the mat, just click on the load button at the top. And your Cricut will start cutting. So the cutting is done. It's time to unload the mat. Just click on the arrow button and pull the mat out. And now we need to remove this whole thing out without touching the adhesive side as much as possible. Just bend it here, and I'm going to use a needle or something because I don't have a tweezer. So I'm going to be using this. Oh, there you go. Now it's time to place the lining onto the mat and get that cut. Now it's time to cut out the fabric. But before you do that, you need to place your fabric marker pen in the marker area. So open up your pen. Damn, it's hard. Okay, all done. And insert it into the place where the pen is supposed to go. And make sure that the arrow is completely inside and you hear that tick sound, which would mean that your marker is in place, and then just close the clamp. And if you don't have your rotary blade installed, just go ahead and install that. So open up the clamp and take this deep cut blade out and just install your rotary blade, keeping the covered plastic kind of thing towards you, and just close the clamp like this. You're all done and ready to cut your fabric. Next, place your fabric onto your mat, pretty side down, as you can see over here, and get rid of any wrinkles or creases, and make sure that your fabric is smooth, and just load it onto your mat. And at the same time, make sure that your design is loaded on your computer. Press the arrow button and load the mat. And now the C. Alright, all the cutting is done. Just gotta unload the mat now. And you can see Cricut has made some marks and cuttings as well. Now just gotta peel this off. Make sure that you don't touch the adhesive side of the mat, especially if you're living in Australia where the mats are hella expensive. Alright, now I'm gonna load the last fabric. One thing to make sure when you're placing the 9 by 8 inch fabric is the 9-inch part, the longer length is horizontal. So this way it measures 9-inch and this way it measures 8-inch. So make sure you do that correctly. Now just press the load button and watch the magic. Oops, gotta press C as well. So now you should have all your pieces cut out like this. And you know what the best thing about Cricut is? That it marks all the pieces like this. And you don't have to manually mark anything. It saves up so much time. So the first step is to fuse the interfacing to your outside piece. So this is going to be my outside piece. And one of the pockets. So this is going to be one of my pockets. So go ahead and fuse the fleece or interfacing to both of them. So once everything is fused, it's time to start the project, and the first step is to make the tab. This is the fabric for the tab with the C on it. And what you gotta do first is just fold along the center line. It is so awesome that they already marked everything for us to fold. So all you gotta do is just fold along this line and just finger press it. Next, open up the fold and fold along this line that you see, so that the raw edge matches the center like this. And do the same for this side, just fold along this line and fold again from the center. So you will have straight strip like thing, and you just gotta top stitch along these two edges. Now a thing about top stitching is different compared to normal stitching, because in top stitching you use longer stitch length and you can use decorative thread. But for simple sewing projects, I just like to use a normal thread and long stitch length. So go ahead and top stitch on either sides, on both the longer edges, and then we'll move on to the next step. One more thing to keep in mind while top stitching is to keep the seam allowance really small, like around 1 by 8 of an inch, because that's what brings the beauty in your top stitching. Alright, my top stitching is done. Now I'm gonna insert my D-ring inside and attach this thing. So once your D-ring is inserted, fold the tab in a half and place it between the two marks on the outside piece. So again, this is very great, awesome thing about Cricut. It just marked everything for you. And if you look closely, you will see these two marks over here. So this is where you need to place your tab. So all you gotta do is take your tab and base it here just between the two marks. So yeah, go ahead and do that using 1/4 of a seam allowance. And to prevent your D-ring from moving around like this, what you can do is do another set of stitches just below the D-ring, just below where it ends, so that it does not move around and screw up this whole thing. And you can use a short stitch length because this width is pretty small. Now it's time to sew the zipper pockets. So take the piece with the interfacing at the back and place it right side up like this. Next, place your zipper on top with the right side of the zipper. The side with the zipper pull is the right side of your zipper. Make sure that it's facing down like this and the raw edges are completely aligned. And next, you're gonna place the piece without the interfacing on top of the zipper. So now you can pin the 3 layers together, and then you can go to your sewing machine and sew just along this edge using a seam allowance of 1/4 inch. And if you like, you can use a zipper foot as well. Now just fold the pocket pieces away from the zipper like this and press it down together. Now we're gonna top stitch along this edge using a seam allowance of 1/8 inch. Again, you're gonna top stitch, so make sure that you're using a long stitch length. Now it's time to attach the Velcro. So the Velcro needs to be attached exactly on the place where you have the circle mark. So if you turn your fabric to the wrong side, you will see that your Cricut has placed a circular mark like this. So you gotta attach your Velcro on this point. This might not be visible on the other side, but just try to figure out where it is placed and just glue this thing on the center, and then you can top stitch all around using your machine. I'm just gonna use a fabric glue to hold this in place. The Velcro is already glued in. I'm just gonna top stitch all around now. Now the next step is to attach the lining to this piece. Okay, now the next step is to attach the lining to your zipper pocket. So first of all, flip the pocket upside down like this. Next, place your lining on top so that the curved edge is aligned to the top edge of the pocket like this. And you can hold the two together in place using clover clips. Now what you gotta do is flip this whole thing. Now I can show you where you need to stitch. So you will be stitching this zipper to the lining. So you're only gonna sew over here, and you can use a seam allowance of 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, and you can use a zipper foot if you want. So this zipper is gonna be attached to the lining over here. So go ahead and do that on your machine. So once you're done sewing, this is what you should have. So at the back, it's gonna look like this, and if you fold this whole thing away, you will have your lining on one side and your pocket on the other side like this. So check if you have this thing, and once you have a piece which looks like this, just go ahead and flip this lining back on the zipper. So you will have 3 layers here. 1, 2, and 3. So you will have 3 layers here. Now we're just gonna go ahead and press this in place. So your zipper might fold a bit like this, which is exactly what we want. So go ahead and press this in place, and then we're gonna move to the next step. So once you're done pressing, fold your lining away and press your zipper so that it lies flat like this and all the edges are perfectly aligned from the bottom. So once you have that, go ahead and top stitch over here. Just do a basting stitch over here to set the zipper in place. So you're going to base stitch on either sides. Just move your zipper pull out of the way and base stitch over here as well as over here using 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Make sure that you hold the zipper down like this and make sure that the edges are perfectly aligned at the bottom. You can also hold together using clover clips if you want, or just spin it. So go ahead and do that on your machine. So after you have pasted your zipper, another way to check if you're going in the right direction is to open up the zip, and you should see this pretty fabric peeking out from inside. So that means you're doing the right thing. So now we're gonna move to the next step. Now on your lining fabric, attach the other side of your pretty Velcro. So make sure that you do it exactly on the mark over here. So turn it over and just make an estimate of where the mark is and glue this whole thing in place. So you can also double check if you placed it correctly by overlapping the two Velcros. Make sure you don't stick it because it's gonna come off because it's not sewn in. So once you're happy with the positioning, you can go ahead and top stitch the Velcro on your machine. Now the next step is to sew the exterior and the lining together. But before we do that, we need to get rid of the excess zipper sticking out. And before you cut out your zipper like this, make sure you do a zigzag stitch over here so that when you are zipping this thing, there are chances for zipper pull to just fly out of the thing. And to stop that, you do a zigzag stitch over here so that you can see the zipper pull doesn't go farther than this. So make sure you do that, and then you chop off the excess zipper from both the sides. Now make sure you put your zipper pull in the center so that you don't have problems in sewing the sides, and place the exterior on top of the lining. Turn to the lining side, pin everything in place. And first you gotta pick up this thing, the lining, the single lining layer, and just stitch the pocket to the exterior over here. So these are the two pocket layers. These need to be stitched to the exterior first. So go ahead, lift this thing away and stitch all along these three edges only. And for this step, we are using a seam allowance of 3 by 8 of an inch and normal stitch length. Alright, my pocket is attached to my exterior now. So now it's time to sew all around this thing using a seam allowance of 3 by 8 of an inch. And when you're sewing, just make sure that you leave behind around 3-inch at the 3-inch gap at the bottom over here to turn the right side out later on. So I'm gonna start stitching from here. I'll go all around and I'm gonna stop here. And make sure when you're stitching, back stitch at the start and the end, because this might just come off when you're turning the right side out. So once you're done sewing, just clip the corners. And trim the seam at the top of the curved area. Notch the curve very small, at very small notches so that you don't end up cutting the seam. Now just turn the right side out. You might have to push the zipper pull all the way to the right. Make sure you poke all the corners out to give a nice sharp finish. And you can use chopsticks to poke your corners out, but be very gentle because you don't want to poke a hole. So I'm just going to use my scissors. So once you have perfectly turned everything out and you have flattened the seams, just open the pocket and it's close off the seam that we left behind earlier. So push everything away. You just have to close off this seam. Now you can hand sew this or you can do it on your machine. It's not going to be visible because it's going to be inside the pocket. So I'm just going to sew this thing on my machine. So make sure that you don't have anything else caught up in the seam, just these two layers. So I'm just going to top stitch over here to close this gap. Once you have closed off the gap, turn everything right side out once again. So once you have turned out everything right side out, it's now time to give your mini wallet a nice press. So all the pressing is done. Now I'm just going to top stitch this flap starting from this corner and all the way here. So go ahead and do that and make sure you use a long stitch length when you are top stitching.